Hello and welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show. We're talking all things Leeds United with myself, Stephen Brown, and joining me as ever, Jason Booker. Yeah, we're going to get into a few different bits and pieces. We're going to take a look ahead of the massive game against Brighton at the weekend. We're going to delve into a couple of statistical things that have popped up during the week as well, and just have a general chit chat about how we're feeling all things Leeds United at the moment. If you're watching along live or watching this later, do please smash a like on the video, get your comments in, and also subscribe as well. Before we get started, though, there was a little West Yorkshire Football Show get-together, wasn't there, Jason, this week? I missed out. I did regret it when I saw Lewis Sale's food post as well. I was like, I would have killed for that. I would have absolutely killed for that. It looked absolutely brilliant. But it was the Bradford City game versus Lincoln, finished 0-0. I did watch it. I did manage to watch it. But a good little catch-up there, Jay, with the boys.
Yeah, it quite poignantly fell on the remembrance as well of the 56 at the fire, which was quite nice and quite apt, to be there for that. The game as a spectacle wasn't great. It was League One football at its best, and it ended up as a bit of a damp squid 0-0. But it were all right. They were back and forward both sides. Both sides looked more like they wanted not to lose than to actually go on and win the game. Both teams had injuries as well, but there were a lack of creativity. But yeah, seeing the boys and enjoying an away day with the boys was quite good fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, you're similar as me, aren't you? You're a Bradford boy, and probably went to a few Bradford City games growing up, like me, because obviously we're always cheaper tickets than Leeds, more availability. So, yeah, I'm one of them. I've got a bit of a soft spot for Bradford City, I've got to say.
Truthfully, I have, I especially with them being the underdogs over the years and falling on such hard times over the last, say, 10, 15. I've definitely kind of felt that way about them. And even going into the scouting world, because I was scouting for Stockport a lot, I spent a lot of the seasons when Stockport were in the National League at Bradford City watching players. So again, you become a little bit attached in a weird sort of roundabout way. So yeah, they're definitely not one of the teams that I don't like. So soft spot for them.
Good stuff. Top Banana morning, lads. Morning, Top Banana. Thank you for getting involved. Jay, I mean, it's fantastic to come off the back of a win against West Ham last week. What's Lou saying here? I'm still getting over some of the standards.
It weren't ideal. It weren't great.
Do you know what, though? I've got to say, watching it at home, I wasn't bored, though. It wasn't like, I didn't feel like I was watching a boring game or anything. I thought it was all right. I was, that 90 minutes went pretty swiftly, I've got to say.
The thing is, at the level, Brownie, right? Like, you're never far away from a mistake. So you're always on the edge of your seat with it. I mean, every time the ball went back towards the Lincoln goalkeeper in the first half, I was like, is something going to happen? You know what I mean? Because technically, decision-making is lower, the technical ability is lower. So things can happen at any given time. And I think because the game's a little bit more direct, even though the quality is lower, because the game's more direct, it's going in and around the goal area more often. So it probably has that feeling. Whereas at the Premier League, you know that the ball's going to spend a lot of the time at the feet of the defenders, building up play. So it is different. I enjoyed it. Lou, I mean, I reminded Lou that he spends most of his time watching Park Avenue, so he's got no he can't complain about what he sees at League One level, really.
Exactly. But getting back to Leeds NJ, obviously beating West Ham last Friday night, and it set up a nice weekend for us. And it's always a kind of more relaxed week, isn't it, when you've got a win behind you, especially in the Premier League. It feels like that pressure valve has just been released a little bit, and some interesting kind of stuff coming from that. I think probably, one of the first things I want to get into, and you did a little video earlier in the week about it, and that is about Brendan Aronson and his impact. Had an absolutely terrific game. I think it was pretty unanimous in what everybody thought of it, which is probably one of the few times, if maybe the only time, that Brendan Aronson's kind of had unanimous kind of positivity back from the fan base. I don't think it was kind of undeniable, though. And you brought up a graphic, and I'm just going to kind of get this on here as well. But this is chance creation. So this is a graph where it's chance creation ratio, which apparently means kind of key passes leading to kind of key moments. And Brendan is sat at the top of the list in the Premier League, and you're looking at some big names there: Doku, Salah, Ndiaye, Saka, and our American boy sits right at the top there. And it's fascinating because coming into this season, Jane, we talked about it when we looked at our squad, shake-up video in the summer, and Brendan was one of those with a question mark on him. You thought, looking at him, you probably wouldn't want to play him as a 10 in the Premier League, and clearly that's the way the team is set up. We go for that 3 physical. We don't play with a 10. And by kind of circumstance, injuries to wingers, Brendan didn't start the season. He's found himself on the pitch. And it's funny how football works, isn't it? And the way he's progressed, and, on the back of that West Ham goal last week and some, really good individual moments, we could be looking at a situation where it's kind of his place to lose, certainly until, we potentially bring in someone else in January.
100%. I mean, we've seen with Dan James that his ability during possession is limited. I really like Dan James over the 2 seasons of the Championship. Spent 2 seasons saying that, he scares defenders to death, and he was arguably the first name on the team sheet for long periods of them 2 seasons, especially last season. But at this level, you need somebody that's got a little bit more about them, a little bit more capabilities on the ball, and Brendan has got that. The problem with Brendan is in his head, is his confidence, his mentality, and I don't think as a fan base we really helped that situation either, if I'm honest. And we've absolutely battered him for 4 years now, or whatever it is. And some of it's his own doing, of course, and some of it's his own doing because he left on loan and all the rest of it. I get it. But the reality that we find ourselves in now, when he came into the team, he's improved us. He came into the starting 11 and he's improved us. People then say, oh, he just runs about a lot and he don't get goals. He gets a goal and people say, oh, it's just attacking. Well, you can't have both. And then, people say, oh, he don't create chances. You bring up a statistic that shows that he's creating chances. Oh, that statistic doesn't really mean that. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you're talking nonsense. At least just say you don't like him and it's personal. That's it. Yeah. People are so quick to jump on certain individuals within a squad and within a system. I've said it countless times over the previous weeks. If you were a Leeds boy, you'd be absolutely heralded. It would be absolutely loved by this fan base. But because he's American, because he left on loan, because especially in the first season when he came, he got pushed off the ball far too easy. I don't even think that exists now. Like, I think he gets, at times, he will get out-muscled because of the type of player that he is. But guess what? Like, Lionel Messi gets out-muscled at times. Like, it happens. Players within creative areas of the pitch are going to lose the ball a lot more than they're going to do anything productive with it. That's just the law of averages, given the fact that when they stand the ball up, they've got 7 defenders in front of them. Most attacks break down. That's why games are usually 1-0, 2-0, 2-1. Like, if the games if football games were 15-13 on the scoreboard, then you could argue the fact that he needed to be doing more with the creative moments that he gets. But that's not how it works. Go look at Somerville. Go look at Jorginho Rutter. Jorginho Rutter's a great example when he were at Leeds. Go look at how many times attacks broke down when he was delivering them. So why didn't we jump all over him? Because he has a funky hairdo and he goes, let's go. You know what I mean? That's it, isn't it? Like, it's all about what he does to the fan base and how he makes the fan base feel.
Well, Brendan suffered as well because of the American thing as well that happened where, you had Adams over, you had Weston McKennie over. It felt like the American takeover, and obviously the 49ers in the background. I think there was big anti-American sentiment that kind of fed into that as well. Even though, Adams was good for Leeds, I maintain that. And, McKennie under different circumstances, who knows? And I think Aronson has got the brunt of that. I think it's, he's the one who's kind of signed for big money, big contract, but he's decided to come back and fight for it. And I think it's, like you say, it's fascinating how quickly kind of players can get written off, and it would be some redemption out, wouldn't it, if he turns it around now. Obviously, as Top Banana says here, he thinks Gnonto and James are the better wingers, and it's interesting. I mean, Gnonto, I almost look at Gnonto and Aronson. They're almost kind of opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of how kind of intense they are. Gnonto is someone who picks the ball up, he slows it down, and we know he can look after a football. and everything like that. But he's kind of very kind of one pace, where Aaronson's so kind of intense and frantic, and it's almost like you kind of want one to speed up and one to maybe slow down a little bit sometimes. And I agree with you on James as well. I think James, he's got a bit of a battle for himself this year as James, in terms of that space. But yeah, it's just interesting. You've got these different kind of dimensions to these wingers.
The good options to have as well. I mean, Dan James away from home, especially when he's fully firing, especially against the big teams. You think about how high Liverpool will play, or how high City will play, or whether Arsenal. If you can pop balls over the top and ask Dan James to run in them channels, it could be really effective, especially if Dominic Calvert-Lewin's playing. And you're whipping balls into them dangerous areas. But in terms of the build-up and the way that we play most of the games, the way that we set up tactically, I would argue that Brendan's far more accomplished to actually help build up play. I think defensively is arguably the best defensive winger in the league. He gets through such a shift. And again, people say that he doesn't win the duels. Go look at the statistics. It's not true. He wins a lot of duels. He wins the ball back a lot. He retains it as well. He'll win the ball back on the halfway line and pop it into midfield. But people just skirt over it because it's not sexy, but it matters. When the ball bounces back off the defender and goes out for a throw-in that he won, like, they ignore that because it's not sexy. It's not a G&A. And as for Nonto, like, I think me and you have said this for 3 years now. I personally think he's the most overrated player in our squad. I really do. I think the idea of what he delivers is far bigger than what actually he delivers. Outside of that first 5 games when he first came into the side in the Premier League, he's always flattered to deceive. He's had odd moments here or there. And
I remember, sorry to interrupt, but there was one spell in the first Championship season where he got a position for himself, and he had a really good. But again, it was only 5 or 6 games, and then he got injured, and then when he came back, it just lost.
Well, that's another thing with Willie. He is injury prone, which then curtails his form and his momentum. So then he's having to build that momentum up when players that have then taken the spot are in front of him. He had that last season with Solomon. There was no way they were getting back in over Solomon. No way. Once Solomon started really hitting the heights of what he was capable of. And then Nonto couldn't build up the momentum. And again, that's happened a little bit this season. He would have 100% played, I think, over Brendan if he'd have been fit. But he's now missed that chance, and now Brendan's taken it. And I don't think anybody can argue with me that Brendan deserves to keep that spot for now. We've seen an improvement of performance week by week, because I think he was really good against Spurs. And he has started to really improve week on week, and then that's crescendoed in his best performance last time out against West Ham. That was probably his best performance in a Leeds shirt. So people hear me speaking about Brendan and supporting him and think that I'm saying he's a good footballer. Like, he's an average footballer that's got credentials that really suit us. I recognise the fact that he really helps us as a squad. He really helps us as an 11 on the pitch. He gives more license to Okafor. He gives more license to Bogle on his own side. He gives more license to the midfielders in the central areas to break out of position, because he's so disciplined defensively and his energy and work rate is so high. And if you can add what he did against West Ham, because it weren't just that one moment. There was that one moment where he obviously ran and hit the crossbar, but there were other moments in that game where he showed the capabilities of being able to beat players. So, if he can add a little bit of clinicality to his assists and his goals, he'll be a real problem for teams.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's kind of a bit unique, isn't he, as well? Because he isn't one of these big, huge wingers, is he? He's kind of diminutive. And, you saw that run that he did against West Ham, Jay. I mean, where he just picks up the ball and dances through a couple of challenges, and then he's carries it all the way up the pitch. And you're watching it and you could feel that confidence emanating from him. You think that's, if you could kind of harness that, if you could kind of have that kind of Brendan for, the majority of games and give him that confidence, because, he's got a skill set that isn't that kind of common these days, especially, I mean, how many small players are there in the Premier League? I mean, there's hardly any.
Yeah, they're all physical presences, are they? I mean, you're 100% right. And I mean, that run that we're talking about, let's just bear in mind as well, he sits 2 players down and stops. Before, it wasn't like he was just catching them on the counter. He then picks the ball back up and speeds up to full speed and beats another 2 players through the middle of that. And then he has the couple of moments on the edge of the box where he's looking for the opportunity to take the chance. I'd have loved to have seen what would have happened with it if it hadn't have taken a deflection, because it looks like it was being low driven, and it actually looked like he made good contact with it, which quite often Brendan doesn't. One thing that I will lay at his door is his technical ability when he's striking the ball is really, really poor. But again, I think I truly believe that is more of a mentality thing. I think he struggles with the composure of it rather than technically being able to pass a ball. Of course he can, So I'm just pleased for him, and I hope fans get behind him. Like, I've had people criticize me for supporting him, and I'm like, are you listening to yourself? Like, I support every player that plays for Leeds United, like, let alone one that's giving his absolute all. If he was out there walking around and strutting around and then still playing, then I'd be saying no, absolutely not. But he absolutely gives everything, and when the quality then comes, he has got patches of it. And right now, like, I would love somebody that was better than him on that right hand side, but we haven't got anybody that's better.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's a little bit of that. Yes, I mean, it's probably every club's fans, but I think Leeds, because we had a decade and a half, in the doldrums, as it were, and we saw a lot of bad players, and it's almost like there's always got to be that scapegoat. There's always got to be that player that the fans can look to and go, they're crap, they're terrible.
Sorry, I just wanted to I didn't expect you to finish then. Oh no, you're absolutely spot on. You're absolutely spot on. I mean, there will always be one, and it tends to be somebody that looks and feels like Brendan does. And like I say, you add in the fact that he left on loan, and you add in the fact that in the first season he got pushed off the ball, he's American, Jesse Marsh, Tyler Adams, all the rest of it. I just prefer to take it for what it is. Like, he could have kicked and screamed last season. He could have done. He went out on loan. There would have definitely probably have been another loan route for him if he'd have kicked and screamed. Yeah. But he didn't. He came back and thought, you know what, I've maybe made a mistake here. I maybe need a season to rebuild. Leeds United are prepared to give me that. I like what Daniel Farke's saying. I'm here. And, he's been the one that's overcome all that. Bear in mind, when he came onto the pitch in pre-season, he got booed last season. He then came on against Portsmouth and got booed. Scored us the goal that equalises that game. Like, you see these moments, watershed moment. And I know he should have scored again and gone on to win that game. But if he doesn't score that goal and we lose 3-2 opening day against recently promoted Portsmouth, who knows what happens over that next 5 or 6 games? Maybe that was the watershed moment that actually took us on to finish on 100 points. I know it's not as simple as that, but it's still a key moment. People say that he doesn't contribute. He's not contributing. Brendan Harrison scored some massive goals last season.
Yeah.
He scored the goal away at Derby when probably our goal of the season in a 1-0 win down there. Beautiful goal, beautiful build-up. He was the one that scored us that. Who knows how that 2 points that we needed then would have changed our season if we hadn't got that. So I won't hear it. I won't hear it.
No, absolutely. And look, we've forgiven players for far, far more than what he's done as well. So it's time to get over it, I think. Bernardo, just hope Goodmanson is fit for the weekend. Yeah, we're hoping Gabby will be back. We don't know. I think Farke's press conference is going to be later today, so we'll hear a bit about that. And interesting graph that I saw today. I'll be interested to get your take on it as well, Jane. I mentioned it last week and probably a couple of weeks before that, but the Athletic always run an alternative Premier League table every week based on different statistical bits of information. It's fascinating watching Leeds in this because the way Leeds trend this season, it's absolutely fascinating. I mean, I've seen so many graphs this week, Jay, where we're like in the top quarter of, it'll be things like pressing or, chance creation. We were, near the top. You think, why are we in 15th? I don't get it. And if that evens out, if that rights itself, we're going to be absolutely fine. But the one that came up today was this one. So this is 2025-26 Premier League standings, goals from new faces. So what proportion of each team's total they represent. So 66% of our goals have come from new faces, new players in the building. Which I think is interesting. Leeds are number one in that. Again, I would say that's a huge green tick in the recruitment column. What about
Yeah,
you,
it's
Jay?
an interesting one. That I mean, I don't know what's made anybody put that list together. It's a bit of a bizarre one.
I think they're kind of stretching it out there a bit.
Yeah, so what we're looking: Stack, Calvert-Lewin, Okafor, Goodmanson scored. I'm not sure if he has. I don't think he has actually.
No. Yeah, Okafor. Yeah, Okafor's got a couple.
Okafor's got a couple. Stack's got one.
Who the hell else?
Calvert-Lewin's got one. Yeah.
Calvert-Lewin's got one.
Mecha scored on opening day.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple of ways that I will look at this. Is number one, like when you come up from the Championship, you are going to recruit players that should be then starting and then aka scoring goals. So I think that's part of it. But I do think the recruitment has been good considering the resources that we had to use. I'm taking it now, the window's shut. I'm taking it that we had about 100 million to use, and we used it on 10 or 11 players, I think it was in the end, and we padded out the squad in the areas that it really needed. You know, we saw the capabilities of James Justin as an example at the weekend for 10 million quid. When he's able to come at left back and right back, him over Sam Byram, who was full of defence of last season, but he deserves a role that sits in the stand unless we really, really, really need him in the Premier League. That's a huge Can you imagine in the West Ham game if we'd have had to bring on Sam Byram? Yeah, so it's easy in hindsight when we need an attacker to say, why did we spend 10 million quid on James Justin? We saw why we spent 10 million quid on James Justin.
100%.
So, you know, when you then look at that over the whole squad, and, you know, people will say the same with Bornau. The problem is at some point or another, we're going to lose Pascal Struijk for 2 or 3 months because that's the pattern that we've seen with Pascal. So we needed another centre-back because we don't want to have to jump Ampadu into the back line because he's so important, especially at Premier League level. We can get away with Ilya Gruev playing 6, 7, 8 games in a row at the Championship. In the Premier League, we can't. We might literally lose all of them because of that. So when you actually break down the recruitment situation, I think that they've done very well, very well. And if we finish the season anywhere above 18th, it will be an absolute huge success.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting looking at that table as a whole because it does kind of paint a little bit of a picture of the Premier League this season. So at the bottom, you've got Fulham, who've not had any new faces score any goals. And you've also kind of got Wolves in about 16th place there. And, you know, you can see those teams that are kind of struggling to regenerate and find a new path. I mean, Villa are on there. Obviously, Villa are on a hot streak now, but they had a difficult start. And it's fascinating to watch Villa, actually, because it's like the core of that Emery team are still there from 3 years ago. And they're still riding that. They don't seem to be able to add to it. Harvey Elliott, I don't know what's going on there. But, you know, Jadon Sancho, I mean, you know, throwing a strop when he got subbed the other day. You know, and it's kind of a warning from the future, I suppose, as well, Jay, because if you do survive, if you do kind of stay up 3-4 seasons into it, you know, how do you evolve? How do you move forward? And it's like I said recently, I think, you know, it's okay kind of staying up, getting new players in, exciting and everything, but what's that next kind of step then? What do you do? How do you keep on top of that? And you've got to be willing to kind of let players go, get new players in. You know, you look at kind of other teams that are slightly like Bournemouth are in 9th, for example, the way they've been able to regenerate is kind of the instruction manual, isn't it, on how to do it?
You've got to, in my opinion, as well, look at the quality difference between what we had and what we've now got. Yeah. So, you know, when you look at Calvert-Lewin in comparison to Matteo Joseph or Patrick Bamford, when you look at Okafor in comparison to Ramazani, yeah, I'm not counting Solomon because Solomon wasn't our player. When you compare Goodmanson to Junior Firpo, when you compare Stack to Joe Rothwell, when you compare Biol to Pascal Struijk, and I know I'm being flippantly harsh there, but certainly I think the rest of them, it all applies. Like the levels of improvement is so high in comparison. Yeah. You know, James Justin to Sam Byram, as I've just explained. You know, the level difference between them two is huge. So that is where you have to say that is really, really top recruitment. And it's funny because I would argue as well that a lot of them would probably find themselves in the Championship if we were to go down.
Yeah.
Some of them wouldn't, but a lot of them would. You know, so it'd be, you know, you do have to, I think, when you're recruiting first season up, you do have to bear that in mind. Or at worst, the return on investment that you get. You know, Goodmanson for 10 million quid. If he forces a move out, we get at least 16 to 20, at least. You know, and I think that I'd carry on through the rest of the signings if you had a look at them.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a couple of things that I've seen kind of in the week of a discussion around the so-called kind of second half drop-off in the West Ham game. And I've seen kind of, there seems to be a little bit of a thing building up, you know, fans saying, you know, we seem to kind of drop off opponents in the second half and, you know, we got punished in a couple of games already and nearly against West Ham. Do you subscribe to that?
No, I don't, if I'm honest. I think there's many different ways to win football games. And you know, Daniel Farke was very, very clear that there'd been illness in the camp in the run up to the game. There was a serious issue with fatigue and tiredness come the end of the game, and you could see that. And that's what happens. The tireder you get, the more you drop. But we never looked like conceding. Did we? I know we did in the 91st minute, but it was something of nothing. It was a half chance at best. We defended extremely well. And I don't think we set out like that in the second half either. I think for the first 20, 25 minutes, I thought we were absolutely fine. I thought we created some good chances. If anything, we had the better of the first 20, 25 minutes and they were 2-0 down.
Yeah.
You know, they'd gone for it by that point. So I don't subscribe to it at all. Like, what do you want? You want swashbuckling, constant attacking football, which then sees us concede goals. We've been there before.
Yeah,
we've been there under Marcelo. We've been there under Jesse. You know, so I would much rather have, especially when you consider, right? We always say our attack is probably one of the worst in the league, but the rest of the squad is where our strengths and qualities are, and along with the tactical structure of which we're set up to play within. So why not make the most of that? You know, people scoff at the old Burnley Sean Dyche thing, but the reason that they set up like that is they were making the most of what they had. Well, we're kind of doing that in the same way without being, you know, a low block. I still say it's a mid block. It's full of control. You know, we don't give up many good chances. Did West Ham have a real good chance? I don't think they did.
Yeah.
I can't think.
We don't give up any, really, do we? Generally, it's like we're kind of spot on with that.
Outside of the Arsenal game, mate, even this season in the Premier League, we've not given away many big chances.
No. We've been punished heavily, haven't we, really?
100%.
That's what it is. That's what seems to happen. Nice little gap there emerged at the bottom as well, Jay. 6 points to Nottingham Forest, who were in 18th. So, you know, it's great because you're looking at it going, you know, it gets harder and harder for those teams to kind of claw it back because they're looking for us to lose a bunch of games. They've got to win a bunch of games. And, you know, the bigger that gap gets, you know, bring it on. Yeah,
100%, mate. I mean, again, the more West Ham and Forest can go down this rabbit hole of suffering, I'm kind of ruling Wolves out at the minute. Until they start showing some sort of form, they might as well be ruled out as the team that's going to finish bottom. The arguments will be with West Ham and Forest as to whether they can have a turnaround. You know, it's mental. I was talking with the lads about it the other night. Some fans are already calling for Sean Dyche to be sacked after losing to Bournemouth. Like they are on a Madden, mate. They're absolutely on a Madden of Forest. They're flapping because they've had such a successful season last season. They now think of themselves as being this kind of top 6 team, and they're not. Yeah. That team is miles away from being a top 6 team. They overachieved massively. When Marinakis were kicking off at the end of last season because they didn't win that game that should have seen them into Champions League, I was sat there scratching my head because I'm like, this team shouldn't even be in the top 10, mate. Like, what are you doing? You know, and they're finding their place now back. I think they've got some quality, especially going forward. But if the circumstances are not right, and it's, you know, if Marinakis has got involvement off, on the pitch, if he's involved in picking teams and being down on the training ground, you know, we all saw what happened with Morgan Gibbs-White in the summer. You know, he has his release clause met, and then he's basically held hostage and forced to sign a new contract. Like, it was mental, wasn't it? Let's be honest, it was really weird. So there's problems there.
But also the problem with it as well, Jay, is this thing, and we got into this last time we were in Premier League, where, you know, you're scrambling around for managers, and I look at, you know, when I mean, obviously it's a better time when they did it, and I'm sick of keep mentioning, but when Bournemouth brought Iriola in, that's almost like the perfect time. It's like, okay, you keep Nuno for the entire summer, and you get Edu in as your sporting director, clearly hate each other's guts, and it all goes wrong. It just seems like a complete lack of planning, and now it's like Ange, and then it's Sean Dyche because it's the opposite to Ange, and it's just, I mean, it's an absolute mess. And West Ham do the same thing as well. It's like, who's out of work? It's like so basic that they're not identified. I would hope, and I really don't want it to happen. I don't think it will happen. But let's say Farker ends up leaving for whatever reason. I would hope that we have identified a candidate to take over as manager with a bit more forethought, like what Brighton do when they select a manager, or I want us to get into that game where we're going round. It doesn't have to be the biggest name, doesn't have to have been there and done it all in the Premier League before, but a really well identified candidate rather than, he's free, let's grab him.
It's I completely agree with you. It's like they've gone on to Twitter in it and just seen who's everybody saying to get. Oh yeah, Sean Dyche. It is alarming. It's alarming for I mean, Ange felt like that, didn't he? Complete opposite manager of, well, I think Ange had a bit of a relationship with Marinakis, didn't he? And I think that's the long and short of why that's kind of gone on. I saw somebody mentioned, I think it might have been Lou, was saying that he is mates with Silva at Fulham. Marinakis. Apparently, it was previously Olympiacos, so maybe that's something that'll pop up at some point if this one doesn't work out. But yeah, I would like to believe that the 49ers have got a process and a protocol. I can't lie. I believe that they'll probably will have had a hand in Jesse Marsch. I can't lie. I think that probably is the reality. We know that Jesse Marsch was sounded out for a while. Now, look, for every Iriola, you're also going to probably have more Jesse Marsches because it's hard. Like, it's hard to get these top managers. Iriola's completely out of place right now, isn't he? He really is a top 6 manager. He should be at one of the top clubs, and he will be. Before too long, one of them teams are going to take a punt with him. But, for us to kind of come across and find one of them is going to be tricky.
Well, does it concern you about Rangers' managerial search? And, would that kind of be in the back of your head going, they've really scrambled around? It's been difficult for them to do it, and then we must share data, or obviously there must be, why has that happened? And that's would we suffer the same fate as them?
Maybe. I mean, you have to bear in mind that they've only just taken over there this summer. They were playing catch up. The recruitment was a big issue for Rangers as well. Celtic are having a similar issue, and they've obviously had Brendan Rodgers there, who they would say is a top manager for Scottish football. It just feels like they're going through a bit of a transition in Scotland in general right now. I mean, hence Hearts being 8 points clear at the top of the SPL. It's a bit nuts, isn't it? So maybe a bit of a concern, but I also then look back to the fact that when they took over with all the carnage that was going on during that summer, we went and got Daniel Farker. And Daniel Farker was without a doubt the most qualified man for the job. He is factually, statistically, nobody can argue with it, the best championship manager of all time. He's won the division 3 times more than any other manager. So you have to kind of then just say, fair enough. Russell Martin's a funny one, isn't he? I mean, he clearly has shown that he's capable at a certain level with a certain set of players. The problem with the Russell Martin is the lack of flexibility when it's going wrong. You need to be able to show some form of changing, because otherwise you're just you're just relying on the players only, aren't you? And that's it. People have put that at Farker's door. He's proving that wrong. He's proving that completely wrong this season, because as Top Bananas put there, set your targets higher, 10th or 11th. I mean, mate, I mean it nicely. You're off your head. Like, if we finish 10th, you should build a statue for Daniel Farker, and your answer will be, well, Marcelo Bielsa managed it. Lightning in a bottle, once in a lifetime situation. This team is a bottom 5 team. It's a bottom 5 team. If we finish 15th, he has done the very top of my expectation. If he finishes any higher than that, literally he's overachieved to the point where he could go off and get some mega jobs. I'm telling you, because this team is so devoid of real quality throughout it. It's the sum of its parts that's making it look good on the pitch, and that's down to him.
Yeah, I agree. Chatting of Hearts as well, nice segue into our opponents on Saturday. Brighton, their owner, Tony Bloom, has invested in Hearts, and I think he's got about 20% stake or something, 27% stake or something, and immediately their recruitment has gone up another level. They've got some unbelievable savvy deals of Hearts that have just powered them to where they are at the moment. And for me, Tony Bloom, that data model that he's got going at Brighton, I mean, it's the template, but you can't copy it. It's their thing, it's his algorithms, it's his data model, and the way Brighton have kind of built themselves into this Premier League kind of stable kind of entity who, challenged the big boys. They beat Chelsea a couple of weeks ago at Stamford Bridge. Really impressive. Doing a bit of reading on Brighton and kind of trying to get a sense of what's happening with their season, where their fans' heads are at. And, it's an interesting one because they're only a point above us this season, spent a lot of money, but it doesn't seem totally rosy in the garden. Obviously, disappointing cup exit, soundly beaten by Arsenal, beaten last week by Man United. Hertzler, he's one of those kind of hipster manager choices. That's the opposite of what we're talking about, what Forest are doing. He's someone that plucked, from that data. But it doesn't seem to be kind of, that I've been reading about a lack of connection compared to what they had with De Zerbi. De Zerbi was this really exciting, specific brand of football. That's been dialed down a little bit under Hertzler. And it feels a little bit like, and I suppose teams like Brighton, you're always going to hit that point as to go, well, where's next? When you finish, wherever they finish 7th or whatever, it's, how do you get to that next kind of bit? But I still think they're a model for how they've been run. I think the owner is, fantastic, and you can see it with what he's doing with Hearts as well. That impact there as well.
Yeah, he's kind of like the dream owner, isn't he, for most clubs that are certainly within a certain pocket from 10th in the Premier League down to probably the bottom of the Championship.
He's a fan as well, isn't he? He supports the football well. Yeah, it's ridiculous, isn't it, really?
He had his money playing poker, I believe.
Yeah.
Pretty sure that's where his money came from, which is pretty wild. I mean, I remember going down to the Withdean and we were talking about games where we'd won beforehand. I mean, I saw us beat them there in 2008, it was. We've beaten them 3 times, 2007, 2008 and 2009. I was just looking a minute ago, you were chatting. But then since then, we've not won away from home, which is wild. That's 16 years, and we've played them a number of times. It's been a bad hunting ground for us for a long time. But yeah, they're an absolute joy to kind of keep on seeing rediscover themselves and rebuild. And the way that they kind of handled the Ben White situation, it pissed me off at the time because I was desperate for Ben White to come back. I mean, what a difference he'd have made.
Yeah.
And who knows how I would that one player and how the journey for Leeds could have differed if he'd have come and signed, and then we'd have been able to sell him on for 60-70 million or whatever.
Yeah.
But even the way that they handled that, no, we recognise the fact that he's not worth what you're offering, but we are not selling him to you because he's in and around. You're in and around us in the table, and we recognise where we are, and we are concrete in doing that. They played him for a season, and he sells to Arsenal for 50. And we were offering 30, 35, and at the time I was saying that's a lot of money for somebody that we don't know if they can even do it at top flight football. So I rate that, I respect it, and the money that they've got out of the likes of Cucurella, Caicedo, the recruitment structure is just unbelievable. McAllister even as well, and then they've constantly kept on replacing them. And not only did they replace them with like the unknowns at times, they're very flexible with the recruitment structure. So they'll go and sign James Milner, they'll sign Danny Welbeck. They'll sign these players that will just blend, and they're a perfect model. They are really a perfect model. I mean, and go and look at what they do at youth level as well. I mentioned Moises Caicedo. I had the joy of watching him when he were 16, 17, coming through for the under-21s at Brighton. I always remember it because I've never seen a player stand out as much as what him and Evan Ferguson did that day. They were unbelievable. I mean, people talk about under-21s making it up to... I saw people kicking off about Harry Gray again the other day as well. He scores a hat-trick against a bunch of Sunday League players, and he's all of a sudden he should be playing every week in the Prem.
Yeah, but hang on, isn't a certain someone starting him in his FM 26 save?
I start him in the cup game.
Hang
I
on.
start him in the cup game. That's a computer game. It's different. He does make my bench. He's in wonder kid potential. And look, he might be, but to say that he should be starting week in, week out in the Premier League, you're talking about him needing to be Michael Owen or Wayne Rooney, and you're talking about once in a lifetime generation. And if he is, and he should be starting, then fine. But it's unlikely. It's really unlikely. I would much rather see him build up, progressively. But yeah, Brighton. Sorry, we went on a tangent there. But Brighton are unbelievable model.
Yeah, it's one of them fixtures where when it said Brighton away, I was like, it's stinky. I'm just like, I'll never forget the one. I think it was. I'm looking through the results. Yeah, I think it's the 1-0 from 2022, and I'd been down south away on holiday, and I had about a 10-hour drive to get back to Yorkshire to get home in time for the kickoff for Brighton versus Leeds. It was actually Jesse Marsh season where we'd got 9 points. We'd had this fantastic start.
Yeah.
I was listening to podcasts driving up, going, God, they've found it. This could be amazing. I was so pumped, so excited. I was like, oh, this could be it. And we were absolutely dog shit. There's no other word for it. We were absolutely abject, and then obviously didn't win a game until the Liverpool one. And it's just one of them
to lose that 1-0.
Yeah, it's just one of them opponents where I'm just like, But coming into it this season, Jay, forgetting all that, how do you feel about this weekend's game?
It's funny because unless we're playing one of the massive dogs, and I mean even Liverpool right now would fancy his chances. City have shown vulnerabilities as well. I'm probably just saying Arsenal when I say this, but whenever we play anyone else, I'm not going into it expecting us to win, but I think there's a chance.
Yeah,
there's a chance that we can win this game. There's certainly a chance that we can get something from it. I'm not overawed by playing Brighton. I'm not, because I believe in the way that the team are playing, and the proof that we've got over the 9 games of this season shows that we're really, really capable. So, if we go there and we do lose, and we lose 2 or 3, it won't be a huge shock either. But I think, as long as we go and we show the same levels of competitiveness, we'll come out with more points than we'll lose in these kind of games.
Yeah, it's one of them as well. It's kind of because I've been back and forth this week. I was like, oh, Brighton away, horrible. But then when I think about it and you look at the evidence in front of our eyes this season, I don't know. Part of me, I've said to you before, how many times have I said this season, Jay, we just need that statement win. We need that win that makes the media fans go, oh, Leeds are serious, because we haven't had that so far. I mean, beating West Ham last week, it's like 2 teams near the bottom, see what happens. If we could get a result there, I really feel that it could just, really light up our season in terms of how people are feeling about it and just give us that confidence. I mean, even Sean Longstaff's been talking about these players have just got to believe in themselves. They've got to believe in themselves. They are good enough. Yeah,
I agree. I mean, that is probably the only thing that you can lay at our door, that we haven't beaten anybody yet that is kind of at that echelon. You could maybe argue Everton, but Everton have kind of slipped back into our area of the table again. But who knows? Brighton might be in our area of the table as well. So it's a tricky one to say in it. We got a good point against Newcastle. We should have beaten Bournemouth, and obviously conceding in the last minute, that would have been the statement win that you're talking about. But even the way that we played, being in front, conceding in the last minute, and getting a draw against Bournemouth is a bit of a statement, really. We've shown the level that we're at, haven't we? So, I mean, you're probably going to ask for my prediction. I am gonna err on the side of caution. It seems like I'm picking a lot of draws this season, but I'm gonna say 1-1. I do think we can get a point out of this, and I don't think we should be overall by him. I wouldn't be surprised to see us in front in this game. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Yeah. I feel like one thing that I really kind of enjoy under Farker is if there's kind of a weakness, we seem to kind of get it ironed out within a couple of games. Like the whole conceding first, and it was becoming a bit of a thing, wasn't it? And then West Ham, we get the lead. It feels like we're really good at that under Farker. My prediction, I don't know. I'm kind of more optimistic as the week's gone on, and I'm looking for that statement win, Jay. I'm looking for a win for Leeds. I don't know what by 1-2-0, but it could be mad. Probably my head's definitely saying more along yourself, a draw or a narrow defeat. But yeah, I might go with the heart and say I think we're going to get that statement win. I really
You did
do.
this against Spurs and we ended up losing 2-1.
I
hear you though. I hear you. I see it.
So me being optimistic about Leeds United, there you go. But we've got evidence that we can do it. We can do it.
Right, it's good that you can be optimistic in the Premier League. Like the fact that we're not going into this thinking, well, this is one that we just need to chalk off as a 3-0 loss right onto Forest away because they're crap right now. You know, like we're not in that situation right now. I'd go into any game right now, honestly, other than Arsenal away, thinking we've got a bit of a problem because we're going to be fine. Arsenal's literally the only game because they're the only team that really are fully flourishing, and we've seen what they can do to us at the Emirates already. But everyone else right now feels attainable.
Yeah, and I think, do you know what part of that is as well, Jay? It's like a trust in Farker in the terms of I really feel that he drives that, you know, he drives the work to try and get that result on a weekend. And look, at this level, it's not going to happen every week. We've talked about having a bottom 5 squad, but I really feel like sometimes you have a manager and you're just like, what are they doing all week? Like, what are they doing all week?
Yeah, he's bridging the gap.
The game, you're like, what the hell? But I feel with Farker and Leeds, it's like, we're on it.
He's bridging the gap, isn't he? For sure. I was going to say something else there, but I've forgotten. Oh no, that's what I was going to say. Just quickly, you were making the point around the negativity potentially seeping into the team, lack of belief and confidence. After some of the results and the way that the games had gone, we saw that wasn't again the case under Daniel Farker against West Ham. They came out within 20 minutes that absolutely destroyed them. They put them to the sword. I mean, the game was won after 15 minutes. You know what I mean? And that's down to, like, if you had a lack of belief and a lack of confidence in the message that the manager would deliver it, you'd see it in a game like that. Nuno's come out and said before the game that his team were anxious and were stressed. Like we'd not, we'd had a couple of games without a result. We'd lost against Burnley, which would be considered a real problem. And we're gone and we absolutely crushed West Ham in that first 15 minutes. So, yeah, I'm right behind him.
Yeah. Myself and Jay, we will be back for a post-match review of the Leeds United Brighton game at some point.
I am busy Saturday night. I'm only going to get to see half of the game as well, which is really annoying. But my boxer's fighting on Saturday and I've got to be there at 4, so I've got... So I'm gonna have to. I'll watch the first half and then I'll catch up on the second half, and then me and you will get together maybe Sunday.
Yeah, exactly. Good stuff. Excellent. Yeah, so do tune in there, Leeds fans. Myself and Jay will be back Sunday to discuss the game. Thank you very much for watching. Please do like the video, get your comments in, and subscribe to the channel. I've been Stephen Brown, with me, Jason Booker. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you, mate.
And we'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.